reason that we should be doing the breathing today is coming down here this morning to San Diego. We were coming on route 405, which equals neshima, breathing, and equals the gematria yehirakia. Let there be a firmament. As we said, that this is the one firmament whose name is actually firmament, rakia. So in particular, that saying, the second of the sayings, of the explicit sayings of creation, yehirakia, let there be a firmament, equals breath. Neshima, 405.
Is this fitting to the model? Or is it so equal to different?
No, this now is a continuation. We're continuing now the letters. The letters belong to that rakia which is explicitly called rakia, the second from the bottom. And as we said, the letters begin with the aleph, that in Sefer Yetzirah represents the air of breath, the spirit of breath. And here we have a very practical exercise of breathing that we can conceive and try to integrate all of this, all of the information that we've given over just now. As taught in Kabbalah, the breathing process has 4 stages to it. All of it takes place as a cycle within the mind, as it were, within the head, even though the air goes down into the lungs and then goes back up to be processed and to be sent to its respective limb in order to arouse its respective sense. The 4 stages of breath are she'ifa, which means inhaling. The first word is she'ifa, means to inhale.
The same root as shefa?
As what?
As shefa?
No. Different. She'ifa means to inhale. It also means to aspire towards, to desire, to aspire. Lish'of. But as a physical process, a part of breathing, it means to inhale. And then comes blima. Blima means to hold the air, to hold one's breath. This is the word, one of the basic words in Sefer Yetzirah, the word of the Esther sefirot blima. That each one of the 10 sefirot is called a hold. Each one holds itself, controls itself, well defines itself. That's called blima. Then comes neshifa, which is to exhale. And then comes menucha, which literally means rest. And rest means that before one begins the cycle anew, there is a moment or a few moments of rest in between. So this is a cycle, a 4-stage process. In the sefirot, this is Keter, this is chokhmah, this is dat, and this is bina. Means that it creates a cycle like this. From Keter, the she'ifa is at the level of will, it's aspiration. It's Keter, point number 1. Then it goes to the power to hold. The power to hold is chokhmah, tzimtzum. Then the exhalation is dat, under the inhalation, and the rest, which is opposite the holding of the breath, is bina, which in Kabbalah is called the world to come, the world of rest. And then one goes back to aspire anu, which is to will anu. To will a new reality, a new phase of life. As every inhalation is an act of will, of aspiration, aspiring to achieve a new level of life. And that's the way it works. Why does it work like this? Because the basic verse that breathing is based on in the whole Torah, the very last verse of Psalms, that reads, Kol haneshama tahalel ka haleluka, Every soul, and Chazal say, don't read it so, but read it Kol HaNeshima. Every single breath of life shall praise God. And what name is used there for God? Yud K. Yud and Hey, the first two letters of the four letters. Only those two letters are quoted, and those two letters are the letters of mind, of Chokhmah and Binah. So from here we learn that the whole process of breathing is a cycle around the two letters Yud and Hey. Kol HaNeshama, Kol HaNeshima Tahalel, Yud K Haleluka. This is the Yud and this is the Hey. But this is the quotes of the Yud, the crown above the Yud. That's where it begins from. And this is the lower pathway called the Shvila of the Yud. When you write a Yud, if you'll see here, the Yud has a higher point and it has a lower pathway, it's called, a Shvil at the bottom, that connects it to the Hey. So actually all three first stages of the She'ifah, the Blimad and the Shifa are all the elements of the Yud. The quotes of the Yud and the body of the Yud and the Shvil, the path, the lower pathway of the Yud that connects it to the Hey, the Menucha. The rest at the end is the Hey itself. And so every breath is an expression and a praise of Yud K. Kol HaNeshama Tahalel Yud K Haleluka. All right. Now there are many, many hints about these words and what they mean that we will not now go into. So now the question is, in order to make this into a viable practice, we have to give some ketzev, some rhythm to the process. And for many reasons, again, which we will not now be able to go into completely, just give some little glimpses. The basic rhythm, and this does not say how long is each beat, it's just a proportion of beats. The beats can be longer, then the whole breath becomes longer, they can be shorter, and then the whole breath process, the whole cycle becomes shorter. But the ratio, the proportion of the beats that one counts to himself, as it were, until he begins to breathe it without having to count, just naturally, are 8 to 4 to 6 to 5. Which spells out a word which is Jedva. Jedva is joy. We have somebody here by the name of Jedva in the audience. Let's see. It's a woman's name. I mean that even though this process is a process in the mind, but breathing, it's a feminine exercise. It's all feminine. It's all Jedva. Just to explain what this word means as a level of joy, because there are many different words and synonyms for joy. The simple thing that we're trying to do now is if we breathe by using this word as our basic frame of reference, and the basic, our pulse and beat, so that means that the breath itself will arouse and influence in our souls the experience of joy. This is the simplest thing. But to breathe joy is to experience joy. But let's try to understand what level of happiness. There are many different words, or even 10. Here there are 4. Of all of the 10 different synonyms in the Hebrew language that mean happiness, as the Medrash says, there are basically in Kabbalah 4 stages of the manifestation of joy and happiness. All of these stages are 4 levels of mother. There's the whole concept of happiness at all of its levels is a mother concept. The Hey of the Yud K. But the mother herself, as every complete Partzuf stature, possesses all of the levels of wisdom and understanding and emotion and revelation, Malchut. So the 4 levels of mother, which is the wisdom of mother, meaning the father within mother and the mother of mother, and the children impregnant within mother, the son within mother, and the daughter within mother, these are the 4 levels of Jedva, Gila, Simcha, Sason, which literally mean that first there is a point, a sharp, yeah, I heard the expression before, sharp edges there, right? Cutting edge. Jedva comes from the word chad, which means sharp or cutting edge of joy. The first initial point experience of joy is a cutting edge experience of joy. That's the type of joy that gives you goose pimples. That's why this word is the word that is said about Yitro, that came to the Jewish people before the giving of the Torah, and it says, Vayichad Yitro, he became overjoyful, tremendously full of joy, when he heard of all the great miracles to our Jewish people. And Chazal say that word Vayichad, that state of joy, means that his whole body became full of goose pimples. Chidudin, that's called the sharp cutting experience of joy. That is the point of joy. That's why chad is like the word achad, which is one point. The point of happiness, which is the chokhmah, the wisdom of happiness. The initial cutting edge of happiness. Then comes level number 2, which is gila, which is a word that always refers to joy as experienced as filling the heart and as becoming manifest and revealed in the heart. The word gila also means gilui, which is revelation. But it refers to the revelation of the joy in the heart itself before the joy spreads to manifest itself in the limbs of the body. Meaning that it's still a personal sensation. It's not yet seen as an external expression by the observer. That is gila, when the joy fills the heart. Afterwards comes simcha. Simcha is when it bursts. The joy in all of its grace bursts from the heart to express itself in the limbs of the body, in the clapping of the hands, and the dancing of the feet, and the singing of the mouth. That's simcha. The hitpashtut in the evarim, in the limbs of the body. Then there is one point when this joy comes to a high, to a peak point, to a culmination. That peak culmination point of the joy is called sason. So this in general is a very important meditation process in itself, to understand the process of joy in the soul, happiness in the soul, as an experience. It's all once more, it's all 4 levels that in general belong to mother. Meaning the wisdom of mother and the understanding of mother. The wisdom is the cutting first experience of the joy, the point of the joy, and then the filling of the heart. The heart is the mother, the binah shebibinah. And then the expanse and spreading into the limbs. That's the midot, the vav of ima, and finally the epitome point, which is actually yesod ima. So once more, what are the letters? The letters are chet, dalet, vav, and hey. 8, 4, 6, and 5. This is the beat, this is the relative beat of the breath. This is also in Kabbalah called the tikkun of Chava as Chaya. It says that had Eve, the first woman, not sinned, then her name, instead of being Chava, Chet Vav Hei, if one would breathe without skipping over the second stage of holding the breath, then we would have here Chava, Eve. Had she not sinned, she would have been called Chaya, which is also a name. 23. What is Chaya? Chaya is adding to Chadva an additional Dalet. Because the Dalet and the Vav together are a Yud. So that transforms the name Chava into Chaya. Chaya is also the experience of the living breath. What does Chaya mean? It means the living one. That living one is one of the 5 levels of the soul. It's the 4th level of the soul from below. And that experience of living one, that is also the experience of breathing. The experience of the 4th level means the 2nd highest level of the soul, just below Yechidah, the single one, is the living one. And that living one is that revelation is the rectification of Chava, and that is performed by adding to her the Dalet, which means adding the ability to hold the breath, which is actually the Chokhmah of the process. But by adding that Dalet and then making Chava into Jedva, one arrives at Chaya. So actually there's 3 different feminine names. All of them are names of girls. Chava and Jedva and Chaya. And they're all related one to the other. Alright, so this is the form. Once more, we can breathe now in this pattern of 8, 4, 6, and 5. Means that the aspiration is is an experience of a climbing process. The inhaling, filling the lungs or filling even the abdomen, is an experience of climbing. Aspiration is climbing up. And climbing is usually harder and takes longer, more effort than any other part of the cycle. That's why it also has the longest period to it. An 8 count. 8 also represents supernatural, indicating that this is the level of Keter, which is superconscious. Right. Then comes a ratio which is called whole and half. The ratio, the relation between the Chet and the Daled, the 8 and the 4 is whole and half. 8 to 4 is like 2 to 1. Meaning that the holding need only be exactly a half of the aspiration. Then, through the holding, the aspiration is integrated. That's a most important ratio in the Torah that also now we don't have time to explain. For Abu Lafia, the Mekubal that we quoted before, this is the most important ratio in all of Kabbalah, whole to half. It's called Shalem v'chetzi. So once more, the ratio between the aspiration and the holding is this secret of whole and a half. If Chava doesn't have her Dalet, it means that she only experiences wholeness and not the additional halfness which makes the wholeness complete. As Abu Lafi explains, one of the basic problems of the psyche is the non-realization that wholeness is incomplete without the addition of halfness. That you have to be whole and half to really be complete. Right, so that's the chet, the ratio of the chet to the dalit. Then the downward motion, which is the exhalation, is the vav, and the rest is the hey. The vav dot is called maftecha de kalil sheet. It's called the key of consciousness that opens up 6 rooms. 6 rooms or 6 states, 6 spaces, 6 places, as we said before, of consciousness, which are what shall become the 6 midot of the heart. That is da at this point. That's why it's a vav. It's called the key that opens up the 6. Maftecha de kalil sheet. Uvedat, the verse for this in Mishlei and Proverbs is Uvedat chadarim yimalu. With that, the rooms shall be penetrated and filled. The word for room in Hebrew, R-O-O-M, is the same as penetration. The word for room means the potential to penetrate and to fill. Chadira. Uvedat chadarim yimalu. The penetration and the filling of the rooms of the consciousness is the power of Dat. And that's the exhalation, as we'll explain. That power actually sends down the letter into its respective limb of the body. Then the rest is actually the spontaneous expression. When a person is spontaneously able to express himself without making an effort, that is the true rest. True rest is not going to sleep or not becoming null, not becoming nothing. But true rest is like the sun shining its light spontaneously, effortlessness. That is the true meaning of rest, that one sense. What does it mean, a sense? If a person is gifted with a sense means that it behaves and becomes in a spontaneous manner. That is the manifestation of the sense itself, when the energy is directed to its respective limb. And expression is the secret of Hay. Hay is like the 5 fingers of a hand that opens up to express itself, to show itself. So this is the basic teaching of this rhythm and beat of 8, 4, 6, and 5.